Diddy grand jury hears news testimony in federal sex trafficking case. The music mogul scene Diddy Combs finds himself in legal peril that no other single entity or individual has ever experienced because of the ongoing legal battles that he is embroiled in. His involvement has been proven to be a subject of fresh claims, and there is a possibility that he may be charged with breaking federal law. It is reported that the grand jury of New York State is conducting an investigation regarding this complaint that falls in a class of serious accusations to the effect of bodily injury, sexual abuse, human trafficking, and other sorts of organized racketeering. It was declared a statement to the effect that the grand jury is conducting an investigation relating to the evidence involved with this allegation. If these charges are indeed true, then they could potentially reveal that Combs has engaged in wholesale abuses of both a professional and personal nature. This is so whether the charges are proven to be true or not. These allegations maintain that a pattern of conduct is coercive and predatory, and it has been clearly established and pervasive for some time. The plaintiffs, over the course of a number of years, have alleged that Combs employed his influence, financial might, and vast network of connections throughout the industry in order to exert control over people. The use of coercion and manipulation was a strategy that Combs frequently used in order to accomplish the goals that he set for himself. It is alleged that Combs planned events and times when alleged sexual assault and exploitation took place. This information has been made public. The claims being made here are among the most important aspects of this case. It is alleged that these events were planned in such a way as to foster encounters that the plaintiffs believe eventually turned abusive. Some of the plaintiffs have referred to these gatherings as highly controlled environments, and it is also alleged that they were organized in one way. Combs might have either enabled or facilitated the existence of drugs, alcohol, and other factors that made persons who attended such places prone to abuse. Thus, he is most likely to have supported or facilitated use of these substances. The reasoning behind this lies in claims that have been made. It has been alleged by several litigants that he would at times manipulate people by promising them development in employment so that he could gain their trust or obedience. The particular consideration has been brought forth by the plaintiffs and the defendants in their arguments. He was then supposed to use this leverage to hold them under control, either through threats or by other coercion. It was to stay in control of them. One of the turning points is at the time of the grand jury, which could then lead to a superseding indictment. It might be the verdict of the grand jury. Prosecutors, according to sources, concentrate their efforts on accumulating material that can provide not just evidence of instances of abuse, but also a general explanation of the conduct of organized criminals. This material might support both categories of accusations as a justification. In the event that this particular element is found, there is a pretty good chance that the defendant will be indicted on racketeering charges. Racketeering charges are typically used to take down organized crime syndicates. These charges allow prosecutors to demonstrate that criminal activity was part of a larger and more orchestrated scheme. There's a huge advantage that the prosecution can capitalize on here. After the grand jury finds the fact of a supplemental indictment, Combs would face newer claims that were more intense than the already existing claims against him. If there is evidence that the charges that Combs conspired for people to be transported across state lines for purposes considered harmful, then charges of human trafficking may be added to such an indictment. Consequently, the rules governing trafficking apply to situations where individuals are moved from one jurisdiction to another with the intent of committing illegal acts. It will be a legal strategy under which, through its very application many times in a complicated case involving criminal business, the alleged behavior on the part of Combs can be brought within the pale of authority of the federal government for the reason that significantly increased stakes are what are to be obtained easily. The problem is even more complicated by the parallel legal cases initiated by individuals claiming to be victims of the occurrence. Meanwhile, the situation is even more complicated by the incident. In these lawsuits, plaintiffs have asserted that Combs exploited or threatened them in order to maintain control over them. These charges are based on allegations made by the plaintiffs. There are explicit accounts of emotional manipulation, intimidation, and coercion that were committed against the targets in the examples that have been presented. In one particular lawsuit, for example, Combs is accused of not only misusing his influence within the music industry, but also of using it to intimidate or stifle people who might come out with concerns. It is done as part of a lawsuit filing. All claims that have been preferred against Combs feature this one among others. Civil discovery processes can reveal information of great importance to criminal investigation. This is because such information acquired through civil processes may sometimes reveal certain attributes that the criminal detectives can later use to develop further evidence for their case. Thus, this is on account of the fact that civil proceedings usually encompass collection of information. But surely the defense of Combs will likely counter-argue that plaintiffs will be biased due to fiscal interests. This is something that they would probably do. This is because they are defending their case. With regards to cases wherein the civil cases and criminal charges are ongoing simultaneously, this technique is one that is frequently being employed. The issues that have been raised regarding the case relate to the intricacy of the legal processes and a fear that intimidation or influence of witnesses may occur. In case the prosecutors believe that there is a chance for witness tampering, then it is likely that they will call for greater protection of witnesses. Within those measures, there could also be an opportunity to set up bail conditions with further limits or even remanding her before trial. The justification is that Combs happens to be a remarkable, as well as a relevant persona inside the court. For all these reasons, and why not? If the prosecution could come to such a determination, to the extent that Combs' influence in the entertainment industry was likely to deter others from testifying or coming forward with information, then intimidation would become the sticking point in the case. In this scenario, to the extent it would have demonstrated such fears to be legitimate, such would have implications for terms and conditions that would attach to the grant of bail to Combs. Among those is the likelihood of much higher surveillance, along with a restriction on his capability to communicate with other individuals whom he knows in that business. In the event the prosecution succeeds in demonstrating these activities as part of an overall pattern of abuse and exploitation, potential consequences might result in the shifting ways the entertainment business addresses accountability. This change could be the result of the potential implications that the case holds. Most probably because of the likely outcome that could result from the success of the prosecution, this change occurred. Nevertheless, a conviction over such serious allegations would bring more than significant legal effects, such as lengthy jail terms and substantial financial losses. This is because the conviction would lead to heavy legal implications. This is due to the fact that the conviction would set a precedent for subsequent cases. Since it involves matters beyond the facts of the case with Combs, lawyers and industry participants alike are keenly following the case, although it is an investigation by both parties. It raises questions over a pattern of allegations against influential entertainment personalities, systemic concerns related to the industry culture, unchecked influence, and abuse of power. It also points to a specific pattern of allegations brought to the attention of the public. The grand jury is likely to continue with this probe that it has been conducting over the next few months. Furthermore, it is very likely that more people may come forth with their testimony or evidence, which will have an additional impact on your case. At the same time, the decision whether or not to file a superseding indictment will probably have an important impact on the legal tactics that are employed both by the prosecution and the defense. Given the superseding indictment conditions, the defense attorneys who are representing Combs would be required to reassess the strategies of defense that they have thus far developed. This would probably involve attacks on the credibility of witnesses or on the validity of certain claims, especially if the federal government is going to join the fray. If the prosecution were to file a superseding indictment, they could argue that the alleged acts of Combs were not isolated but part of a larger operation that was more calculated. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.